I'm Clayton Eckerd. In 2022, I was the lead of ABC's The Bachelor.
But here's the thing. Bachelor fans hated him.
If I could press a button and rewind it all, I would.
That's when his life took a disturbing turn. A one-night stand would end in a courtroom.
The media is here. This case has gone viral.
The dating contract.
Agree to date me, but I'm also suing you.
This is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
I'm Stephanie Young. Listen to Love Trapped on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, it's Jill Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And today I'm talking with my dear friend, Krista Williams.
It can change you in the best way possible. Dance with the change, dance with the breakdowns.
The embodiment of Pisces intuition with Capricorn power moves.
So I'm like delusionally proud of my chart.
Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Next Monday, our 2026 iHeart Podcast Awards are happening live at South by Southwest.
This is the biggest night in podcasting.
We'll honor the very best in podcasting from the past year and celebrate the most innovative talent and creators in the industry.
And the winner is...
Creativity, knowledge, and passion will all be on full display.
Thank you so much, iHeartRadio. Thank you to all the other nominees. You guys are awesome.
Watch live next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, free at Veeps.com or the Veeps app.
Ego Wodum is your host for the 2026 iHeart Podcast Awards, live at South by Southwest.
Hello, is anybody there?
Raised by a single mom, Ego may have a few father-related issues.
Are we supposed to talk about your dad?
Her podcast, Thanks Dad, is full of funny, heartfelt conversations with actors, including fellow SNL alums, comedians, musicians, and more, about life and their wonderfully complicated relationships with their fathers.
I think and hope that's a good thing.
Get to know Ego. Follow Thanks Dad with Ego Wodum and start listening on the free iHeartRadio app today.
Hey, I'm Jay Shetty, host of the On Purpose podcast. My latest episode is with Hilary Duff, singer, actress, and multi-platinum artist.
You desire in family like this picture, and that's not reality. My sister and I don't speak. It's definitely a very painful part of my life, and I hope it's not forever, but it's for right now.
Listen to On Purpose with Jay Shetty on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So I'm about to sit and watch the arrest of Lucy Letby. It's the first time I've seen it, as I don't love to go out of my way to see people getting arrested. All right, let's see how this goes.
Hello, Lucy, is it?
Yes.
Hello, my name's
God.
Chester, please. Okay, Stefan, 2 seconds.
Yes?
Yeah, thank you.
It's 6 a.m. Lucy is wearing a powder blue hoodie, matching sweatpants. She's letting the officers inside. 11 minutes later, it's recording again, and we can see Lucy being led out of the house in handcuffs. She looks just shocked. We are all seeing the same facial expression, but what meaning are we imbuing to it? Depending on what you feel about her, you think, oh, she's in shock because she's being accused of a crime she didn't commit, or she's in shock because she thinks she was going to get away with it. I don't know, Lucy. I do know that feeling of shock and just helplessness, and how suddenly you go from being a regular person who has the ability to just open a door, right? That's something that immediately is triggering for me, is the memory of suddenly not having access to the world the way that a normal person has access to the world. And now the world is completely changed and shifted around you. I remember the actual moment they put handcuffs on me. They told me that it was a mere formality. It's just a bizarre moment of change that you don't really understand, going from being a free person to a person in custody. There's nothing really that compares to that. It's the ultimate, like, being rendered small.
just going to put you in the back seat over here. Hold on, man. Yes. Just take a seat in there for me, Lucy. I'll move that seat forward a bit. Yeah, just like knee surgery. Oh, right, okay.
Watching this, it brings me back to the day I was arrested. I was so in shock that I didn't even realize what was happening. It was so unfathomable to me that I could be accused that I believed the police when they told me they were taking me somewhere for my own protection. Even as the handcuffs clicked on my wrists, it still didn't click for me. It wasn't until several days later, after repeatedly crying myself to sleep in a prison cell, that I was escorted to a makeshift courtroom in the prison where a judge told me I was accused of murder. Only then did I finally understand what was happening to me. I don't know what Lucy Letby felt the day she was arrested, but in the video of her arrest released by the police, that dazed expression, it gives me chills. But for whatever confusion Lucy Letby may have been feeling, a much more straightforward narrative was starting to emerge in the media.
A woman who worked at the Countess of Chester Hospital has been arrested on suspicion of murdering 8 babies and attempting to murder another 6. Still trapped underground.
As part of the investigation, the Cheshire police search Lucy's home, her parents' house, and Lucy's office at the hospital. They seize her diaries, her computer, her phone, and paperwork she has stashed under her bed. What they find will become key evidence against Lucy at her trial. One item in particular seems so damning, it could well be irrefutable proof that Lucy is exactly what the doctors suspect her of being: a serial killer. The next day, Lucy's name and the accusations against her will make the front page of every major newspaper, every news show, and every radio broadcast. From this moment on, Lucy Letby is a character in her own life story. This is the moment Lucy loses hold of her own narrative. I'm Amanda Knox, and from Vespucci and iHeart Podcasts, this is Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby, Episode 3, Operation Hummingbird.
Hi, this is Jo Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And I just sat down with a Minnie Driver.
The Irish traveller said when I was 16, you're going to have a terrible time with men.
Actor, storyteller, and unapologetic Aquarian visionary. Aquarius is all about freedom-loving and different perspectives, and I find a lot of people with strong placements in Aquarius are misunderstood. A Sun and Venus in Aquarius in her 7th house spark her unconventional approach to partnership.
He really has taught me to embrace people sleeping in different rooms, on different houses, in different places, but just an embracing of the isness of it all.
If you're navigating your own transformation or just want a chart-side view into how a leading artist integrates astrology, creativity, and real life, this episode is a must listen. Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Next Monday, our 2026 iHeart Podcast Awards are happening live at South by Southwest.
This is the biggest night in podcasting.
We'll honor the very best in podcasting from the past year and celebrate the most innovative talent and creators in the industry.
And the winner is...
Creativity, knowledge, and passion will all be on full display.
Thank you so much, iHeartRadio. Thank you to all the other nominees. You guys are awesome.
Watch live next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, free at Veeps.com or the Veeps app.
I'm Clayton Eckerd, and in 2022, I was the lead of ABC's The Bachelor.
Unfortunately, it didn't go according to plan. He became the first bachelor to ever have his final rose rejected. The internet turned on him.
If I could press a button and rewind it all, I would.
But what happened to Clayton after the show made even bigger headlines. It began as a one-night stand and ended in a courtroom, with Clayton at the center of a very strange paternity scandal.
The media is here. This case has gone viral.
The dating contract.
Agree to date me, but I'm also suing you.
Police search warrant.
This is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
I'm Stephanie Young. This is Love Trapped. This season, an epic battle of he said, she said, and the search for accountability in a sea of lies.
I have done nothing except get pregnant by the Bachelor!
Listen to Love Trapped on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Nancy Glass, host of the Burden of Guilt Season 2 podcast. This is a story about a horrendous lie that destroyed two families. Late one night, Bobby Gumpright became the victim of a random crime.
He pulls the gun, tells me to lie down on the ground.
He identified Jermaine Hudson as the perpetrator. Jermaine was sentenced to 99 years.
I'm like, Lord, this can't be real. I thought it was a mistaken identity.
The best lie is partial truth.
For 22 years, only two people knew the truth, until a confession changed everything.
I was a monster.
Listen to Burden of Guilt Season 2 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ego Wodum is your host for the 2026 iHeart Podcast Awards, live at South by Southwest.
Hello, is anybody there?
Raised by a single mom, Ego may have a few father-related issues.
Are we supposed to talk about your dad?
Her podcast, Thanks Dad, is full of funny, heartfelt conversations with actors, including fellow SNL alums, comedians, musicians, and more, about life and their wonderfully complicated relationships with their fathers.
I think and hope that's a good thing.
Get to know Ego. Follow Thanks Dad with Ego Wodum and start listening on the free iHeartRadio app today.
It's been nearly 2 years since the death of baby A. Doctors on the neonatal unit at the Countess feel like they are banging their heads against the wall. So far, they've had 2 external reviews and a third is underway. But still, none of the reviews are coming to the same conclusion as the doctors.
They're saying, we've got a problem. The facts are we've had an increase in deaths and we think it's her.
Michelle Warden is a former neonatal nurse at the Countess. She never worked with Lucy, but she knew a lot of the people who did. And she says the doctors in charge were ready to blame Lucy very early on.
From the first moment that they pointed the finger at Lucy, they were not thinking that Lucy had made a clinical mistake or there'd been an accident. All the way along, they'd only had, on average, 3 deaths a year. They were definitely considering that this was a malicious act. I think because they were saying there were so many and saying, oh, these are unexplained collapses.
Just a side note, for those who are not familiar, in this context, a collapse is a sudden deterioration in a baby's health, a drop in vital signs, a change in heart rate, or if they stop breathing. For the doctors, the sheer number of deaths while Lucy Letby was on shift are looking like much more than mere coincidence, and it needed the police. But still, none of the hospital administrators agree. That is until Dr. Jairam tells them a story that, if true, is the first-hand account of attempted murder.
That is a night that is etched on my memory and will be in my nightmares forever.
Dr. Jairam tells hospital administrators that 2 years prior, he had walked in on Lucy watching a baby nearly suffocate to death. But a question remains. Why didn't he just call the police then?
He suddenly came up with this idea that he caught her virtually red-handed with baby K, but he didn't document anything in the notes and he didn't tell anybody for over 12 months. Now, if you seriously think you've walked into a nursery where somebody's about to murder a baby, you'd just get in your car and drive to the police station, wouldn't you?
After initial conversations with hospital higher-ups, the police are still skeptical that there even is a case. But after receiving an email from Dr. Jairam, a detective decides to meet with the doctors.
I met with Stephen Breary and Ravi Jairam and asked them to explain to me, in the very short timescale we had, why I should or should not take this forward to be investigated.
This is a quote from Detective Superintendent Paul Hughes of the Cheshire Constabulary, read by an actor. It's from an interview he did on a podcast hosted by the UK tabloid The Daily Mail.
Although they are very, very fragile, very delicate babies that need care, there's no expectation of death. There's no expectation of collapse.
Detective Hughes looks like he could be a character in a Guy Ritchie movie. He's bald, barrel-chested, with a close-trimmed beard. He has a kind of Jason Statham vibe about him. In interviews and press conferences about the case, he wears a suit that barely contains him and a somber expression. During their initial meeting, Dr. Breary and Dr. Jairam tell Detective Hughes that although babies on the unit are fragile, one thing they don't do is die suddenly. Of course, it's not like babies never die in a neonatal unit, but, the doctors explain, they usually know when it's going to happen. The doctors go on to explain just how unusual these deaths were, and Detective Hughes leaves the encounter convinced there's a case. Here's Dr. Jairam during his ITV interview.
The very fact that the police, after listening to us for less than 10 minutes, realised that this is something that they had to be involved with, to me speaks volumes. And I could have punched the air.
Finally, the police open an investigation into the deaths at the Countess and codename it Operation Hummingbird. The following series of events would forever change the hospital and everyone on that unit, from staff to parents. A narrative would take hold, and there was no going back from here. This is now a murder case, and at the helm would be Detective Hughes as senior detective. Here he is again, this time in a promotional video put out by the police themselves.
With Operation Hummingbird. What I was presented with was effectively a number of reports written in medical jargon.
It's a lot for the detective and his team to get their heads around. But thankfully, the Countess pediatricians are on hand to answer questions. When I sat down with Dr. Phil Hammond, I asked him about this moment in the investigation.
I don't like it. In a proper scientific investigation, you'd say, okay, we're going to get someone independent to look at this.
If you recall, Dr. Hammond is a retired doctor and medical columnist for Private Eye, a popular current affairs magazine in Britain, and he's written over 30 articles about the Letby case.
I think the first thing to say is that doctors are human, so we're suspect of the same biases and temptations as everything else. I think the biggest failure in that is the police allowed the doctors to investigate these deaths and mark their own homework.
Dr. Hammond says that it is clear the doctors wanted the police to see things their way and to ignore other issues that were plaguing the unit. He tells me about the flurry of emails the 7 senior pediatricians from the Countess were sending each other, right as the police investigation was getting underway.
They're saying, we've got to make sure the police act on this, and we'll cut this bit out, and here are my suggestions, what are yours? And it's clearly they're gaming the information. They actually say we want to pique the interest of the police.
Specifically, Dr. Jairam writes in one of those emails, quote, "Should we highlight explicitly for these cases that LL was in attendance and in close proximity to the incubators? This is, after all, the basis of our concerns, and I think for the police to have their interest piqued, we need to have that."
And I think that's just wrong. They shouldn't be investigating, but they were trusted as doctors. They were the ones who raised concerns.
One of the things I've had to wrap my mind around is that good people make mistakes. The consultants, like even the doctors who were sort of cherry-picking information to make it palatable to the police, they were going off of what seems like a gut feeling, And out of concern for patients,
I think in my interactions with Dr. Jairam, when I first started investigating this, he appeared to me to be very genuine in his beliefs. However, they spun the information. They removed bits about the babies being really sick and them not having enough staff.
Detective Hughes felt the doctor's help was so invaluable that he would go on to publicly praise their contributions. In an interview with The Observer, Hughes is quoted as saying the doctors were the golden thread of the investigation. But it wouldn't be accurate or fair to say that detectives based their entire investigation on the information provided by the doctors. Far from it. In fact, Operation Hummingbird doesn't truly kick off until detectives are introduced to a completely different doctor. A doctor who's never set foot in the Countess of Chester Hospital, but one who becomes indispensable to the investigation. He's the man reporters would take to calling the Welsh Wizard.
Dear Amanda, I enclose a letter I sent to Private Eye yesterday.
This is an email I received from Dr. Dowie Evans last year, read by an actor. I had been briefly corresponding with him in October of 2024 and again in 2026, but he never responded to giving me a formal interview. But that didn't stop him from sharing his thoughts via email.
Dr. Hammond has no experience of medico-legal practice and, as far as I know, has no pediatric or neonatology experience. He's best known as a stand-up comedian and writes for satirical magazine Private Eye.
As you can tell, he's not Dr. Hammond's biggest fan.
The Eye is not really qualified to engage on matters as sensitive and complicated as the murder of little babies.
Dr. Evans is in his 70s, a grandfather living out his retirement in his beloved Welsh countryside. He has white hair, fair complexion, gold-rimmed glasses, and a rotating supply of cardigans. Early one Sunday morning in 2017, an article in the Sunday paper catches his attention. And in true Dr. Evans fashion, he's inspired to fire off an email.
Dear Nick.
Nick is a contact at the National Crime Agency, a sort of clearinghouse that connects expert witnesses with police departments.
I've read about the high death rate for babies in Chester and that the police are investigating. Do they have a pediatric neonatal contact? I was involved in neonatal medicine for 30 years.
Dr. Evans has been out of clinical practice for nearly a decade, but he keeps busy by working as an expert witness, mainly on cases of medical malpractice and child abuse.
If the Chester police have no one in mind, I'd be interested to help. Sounds like my kind of case.
The police agree. Dr. Evans begins work on Operation Hummingbird as an expert witness in the summer of 2017. Here he is talking on the Raj Persad in Conversation podcast.
I said, if you suspect somebody, or you suspect some people, don't. I don't want to know. This is July 2017. What I need is to get the notes of every baby who's died and every baby who's collapsed from January 2015 to July 2016. Not just the suspicious ones or the ones you can't explain. I want all of them.
That attitude, he goes on to say, allowed him to approach the task of investigating in a completely unbiased way. But the records from the police investigation, the ones detailing Dr. Evans' involvement in the case, they tell a different story. According to Dr. Hammond,
and he said, within 10 minutes of looking at the notes of the baby, I knew this was inflicted harm. And the police thought, oh, and it was his certainty.
Hi, this is Jo Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And I just sat down with a Minnie Driver.
The Irish traveller said when I was 16, you're going to have a terrible time with men.
Actor, storyteller, and unapologetic Aquarian visionary. Aquarius is all about freedom loving and different perspectives. And I find a lot of people with strong placements in Aquarius are misunderstood. A Sun and Venus in Aquarius in her 7th house spark her unconventional approach to partnership.
He really has taught me to embrace people sleeping in different rooms, on different houses, in different places, but just an embracing of the isness of it all.
If you're navigating your own transformation or just want a chart-side view into how a leading artist integrates astrology, creativity, and real life, this episode is a must listen. Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Next Monday, our 2026 iHeart Podcast Awards are happening live at South by Southwest.
This is the biggest night in podcasting.
We'll honor the very best in podcasting from the past year and celebrate the most innovative talent and creators in the industry.
And the winner is...
Creativity, knowledge, and passion will all be on full display.
Thank you so much, iHeartRadio. Thank you to all the other nominees. You guys are awesome.
Watch live next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, free at Veeps.com or the Veeps app.
I'm Clayton Eckerd, and in 2022, I was the lead of ABC's The Bachelor.
Unfortunately, it didn't go according to plan. He became the first bachelor to ever have his final rose rejected. The internet turned on him.
If I could press a button and rewind it all, I would.
But what happened to Clayton after the show made even bigger headlines. It began as a one-night stand and ended in a courtroom, with Clayton at the center of a very strange paternity scandal.
The media is here. This case has gone viral.
The dating contract.
Agree to date me, but I'm also suing you.
Please search warrant.
This is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
I'm Stephanie Young. This is Love Trapped. This season, an epic battle of he said, she said, and the search for accountability in a sea of lies.
I have done nothing except get pregnant by the Bachelor!
Listen to Love Trapped on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Nancy Glass, host of the Burden of Guilt Season 2 podcast. This is a story about a horrendous lie that destroyed 2 families. Late one night, Bobby Gumpright became the victim of a random crime.
He pulls the gun, tells me to lie down on the ground.
He identified Jermaine Hudson as the perpetrator. Jermaine was sentenced to 99 years.
I'm like, Lord, this can't be real. I thought it was a mistaken identity.
The best lie is partial truth.
For 22 years, only 2 people knew the truth, until a confession changed everything.
I was a monster.
Listen to Burden of Guilt Season 2 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ego Woda is your host for the 2026 iHeart Podcast Awards, live at South by Southwest.
Hello, is anybody there?
Raised by a single mom, Ego may have a few father-related issues.
Are we supposed to talk about your dad?
Her podcast, Thanks Dad, is full of funny, heartfelt conversations with actors, including fellow SNL alums, comedians, musicians, and more, about life and their wonderfully complicated relationships with their fathers.
I think and hope that's a good thing.
Get to know Ego. Follow Thanks Dad with Ego Woda and start listening on the free iHeartRadio app today.
As long as there have been police and investigations, there has been tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is when investigators get so focused on one theory, they may inadvertently ignore or even deliberately suppress evidence that doesn't fit. You can think of it as a species of confirmation bias, the human tendency to look for evidence that confirms an established belief or favored theory, and to discount evidence that contradicts it. It's a very dangerous problem, one that is at the heart of many wrongful convictions, including mine. Even after the true perpetrator's DNA was identified in and on the body of my roommate, the investigators and the prosecutor, who already believed I was somehow involved, ignored exonerating evidence, like the fact that none of my DNA was ever found in the room where the murder occurred. But they also magnified the importance of irrelevant evidence, like the fact that my DNA was found in the bathroom I used every day. It was tempting to think at the time that they were simply out to railroad me, no matter the cost. But I've learned to see that malice isn't necessary to explain that behavior.
Justice can make mistakes because the machinery is run by human beings, and human beings make mistakes.
John Sweeney from episode 1, the former war correspondent with the unruly dog. He has done a very deep dive into the investigation into Lucy Letby's case.
I do not believe that the police did a proper job when they took the advice of an expert who knocked on their door.
John says that from the very beginning, Lucy was the person at the end of the tunnel, and those with the power to accuse her, charge her, and then prosecute her saw nothing and no one else. And he believes that included their star witness, Dr. Evans, aka the Welsh Wizard.
Essentially, the statistics don't make sense. They're wrong. The idea of somebody being locked up, the idea of me being locked up for a crime that didn't happen or that you're entirely innocent of, that's a terrible, terrible thing. And what happens if they're wrong? What happens if the doctors have improperly excluded other alternative explanations?
John believes that Dr. Evans only helped reinforce the police's tunnel vision, that he was irresponsible with the way he interpreted the evidence supplied by investigators, especially the information gathered that showed Lucy was at work for every suspicious incident.
You've got to be quite careful with the statistics of it.
John Sweeney is not the only one with that opinion. This is Dr. Jane Hutton, a professor of statistics at the University of Warwick.
I've been interested in mathematics for a long time, and also in using mathematics to address problems in the real world.
Dr. Hutton, like Dr. Evans, was hired by the Cheshire Police to consult with their investigation into Lucy Letby.
The first I knew, apart from sort of background noise, was in about April 2018 when I was asked to get involved.
Dr. Hutton recalls that investigators were asking her to find numbers that fit their theory.
Their initial thing was, we'd like you to help us understand the statistical issues, and we would like you to calculate a probability of one member of staff being present. Can you come up with a figure of something like 1 in a million for probability of somebody being on duty? So I said, well, that's completely the wrong way to do it.
That's like asking a fingerprint analyst, can you come up with an explanation for why these two prints match? Instead of asking them to determine if they are a match or not. As Dr. Hutton goes on to explain, when it comes to the neonatal unit and infant deaths, finding a cause of death isn't always straightforward. For Dr. Hutton, looking at neonatal deaths is a bit like being asked to explain the exact cause of death of a very old person.
It can be slightly tricky to think, was it the kidneys or the liver or the lungs or the heart or the brain? So you don't always get a very clear cause. And also, if you're going to talk about an unexpected collapse of anybody in intensive care, you're in intensive care because you're seriously ill and unstable.
And as Hutton says, the babies in the Countess's neonatal unit were sick babies.
The best you can be is stable, contrary to what was said in the trial that the babies were well. If they were well, they were taking up places they didn't need.
Yeah. Dr. Hutton adds that the information she was given on the babies who died or collapsed was not only insufficient, but also incomplete.
For example, all the deaths, and look at all the factors of the deaths, and then you might say, okay, we want to look at twins who didn't die, or we want to look at triplets who didn't die, or so on. So you've got a comparison group.
Without all the needed information, rigorously and properly collected, Dr. Hutton could not determine anything.
So I basically said, that is not what I will do because that is the wrong thing to do. I can tell you what the correct approach is, and I did. We had some meetings discussing the correct approach, what was needed, and so on.
I'll be the first to admit that my brain isn't wired for math and statistics. But even I can tell you, you don't need a PhD in statistics to understand what was lacking here. Basically, Hutton needed a bigger sample size. She needed more information on the babies and their mothers, the pregnancies and the outcomes. For Hutton, cherry-picking the evidence that way is a recipe for tunnel vision.
You need to interpret them correctly. You need to be very aware of cognitive bias and the risks of bias in people looking for evidence.
But Dr. Hutton says her warnings seemed to fall on deaf ears.
And then essentially it went quiet, and I would get the odd trickle of, oh, we're waiting for the Crown Prosecution Service. They might have different views about evidence. So it just went silent.
In fact, the next time Dr. Hutton heard anything substantial about the Lucy Letby case was when Letby was arrested.
You don't start by assuming that there's murder when you have no evidence.
Dr. Hutton might have had real trouble with the task she was given by the police. But Dr. Dowie Evans, he would go on to be the prosecution's star witness. Just before the trial, the doctors at the Countess helped police piece together a graph. On one side of the graph, the babies who had collapsed or died. On the other, a list of the nurses on staff. And right down the middle, under Lucy's name, a column of X's. She was there for every single suspicious incident. But for Dr. Hutton, that graph proved
nothing. Well, all the graph shows is Letby was present when she was present. It doesn't actually show you anything other than that.
You know, one thing that this raises is the question of why Lucy? Why are they targeting her? I'm back speaking with journalist John Sweeney. Is it just because she's conveniently a young woman who's there at the wrong place at the wrong time? Like, why are the police willing to assume, criminal intent or criminal fault, criminal wrongdoing? I mean, and I ask this also from a very personal place, right? Because I also, to this day am like, why me? What was it about me that made the entire world think that I was some kind of insane murder orgy? Why?
So what happens with Lucy is I think she's just like you were. You were very unlucky. And I think she was very unlucky. And she was the wrong woman in the wrong place. And then you've got the police. Now, the police like nailing mass murderers. You've learned from bitter experience. So you've got to come out, and you've got to come out fighting.
You do.
Because otherwise it's going to crush you.
The narrative is this boulder that rolls down the hill and you can't stop it. The more momentum it gets, it's true. It's fair to ask why Lucy was the target. From our work and other investigations into her case, it's clear there are problems with the investigation, and the tunnel vision of the police seems obvious, but not completely unfounded. Even if it didn't prove that she was guilty, Lucy was in the wrong place at the wrong time a lot, and I can see how that might give rise to suspicion. And there was more. Because on the day that the police searched Lucy's house and office, they discovered something that seemed like definitive proof of her guilt. On Post-it notes, on sheets of paper, and in her diaries were words and scribbles written by Lucy that pointed to the evil the police believed lived inside the young nurse.
Basically, here's a note saying, I don't deserve to live. I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them. And then in capital letters, leaping out at you, I am evil, I did this. That's a very striking visual piece of evidence for the jury. So we got that very early on, and of course, you look at that and you think, well, this could be game over already here. This person's literally confessed to what she's done.
Next on Doubt, the case of Lucy Letby.
Physical evidence cannot lie. Insulin testing from this laboratory should not be used as evidence of poisoning. They knew that what they were doing was not the proper way and should not be used as evidence in the case, but yet they did it anyway.
And then finally, judge comes in, all rise, we all stand up, and that's the start of the court day. Here was a woman accused of the murders of 7 babies. You were going to see her in person.
Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby, is brought to you by Vespucci, iHeart Podcasts, and Knox Robinson Productions. I've been your host, Amanda Knox. This episode was written by Clusi de Oliveira, Kathleen Goldhar, and Natalia Rodriguez. The co-producers were Clusi de Oliveira and Lucy Ditchment. The assistant producer was Ami Gill. Senior producer is Natalia Rodriguez. Audio mix by Tom Biddle. The theme music was written by Tom Biddle. Story editing by Kathleen Goldhar. Legal advice was provided by Jack Browning. The producers at iHeart Podcasts are Chandler Mays and Katrina Norville. The executive producers were Joe Meek, Amanda Knox, Christopher Robinson, Daniel Turkin, and Johnny Galvin. Thank you for listening.
I'm Clay.